Good evening. Welcome. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. Welcome to the Grants Pass Seventh-day Adventist Church. And tonight we are in for a very deep spiritual blessing. And we're so glad you're here. I'm convinced that there's no better place to be tonight here in Grants Pass than in this place. We're so glad you're here. If this is your first time to the Grants Pass Church, we want to say welcome, feel at home, and there's restrooms right off the foyer. They're easy to recognize, and there's also water fountains, and also, and as I look around, I don't see too many children, but tonight there's actually a children's program being offered at this very moment, and so if anyone missed that, you can make your way to the back, go to my left, and there you'll see a room with the door open and children. And they're having a wonderful program for the kids there. And that's going to be recommended for those parents who are here tonight with children. And tonight, as we meet here, this will be the beginning of a short series. In fact, you'll continue tomorrow. At 11 o'clock, we'll be having a morning service here, with Cheri Peters. And then in the afternoon at 2:30, we're going to have an afternoon program, and you might be wondering, oh boy, but I'm going to have to go back home and come back. Actually, after the morning service, there will be a meal prepared. Beautiful, delicious vegetarian banquet that will be provided for all our guests, for all of you, and so you're welcome to stay and make it just a full day, and you'll just be truly, truly blessed. After our service here tonight, there will be a table in the back. For those who would like to sign up, if you would be interested in receiving information of a celebrating life in recovery. Did I say that right? Good. What's that? Oh, yeah. And I'm sure you'll tell them a little bit about it, but it's a 14-week program and with Cheri Peters, and it is an amazing program. It's being used throughout the country in many different places. And the reviews are awesome. Powerful people are finding freedom and healing through this program, and we want to bring it to Grants Pass. And so if you would like to sign up just to be interested in information so that when we secure a date where we're going to launch this 14-week program, we will contact you and tell you all about it so that you can come and be a part of it. So there's a table there in the back for you to sign up. And finally, before we begin, I have here a booklet, just a nice little book entitled Living a Long and Beautiful Life. And tonight, as you leave here, we want to give you this book as a gift for you to take home and to be able to just find inspiration and encouragement and blessing as you read this very, very neat little book. And it's our way of saying thank you. Thank you for coming here tonight and being a part of this. You know, Cheri, you have some fans here tonight. Well, let me explain what I mean. At this very moment, there's a group here, a church from a nearby city that are hosting the 14-week program. And in fact, they're on week number 12. Week 12 out of 14, I'd like to welcome a special welcome to the Cave Junction Seventh-day Adventist Church. They're right here. Why don't you stand? Amen. Look at that. Look at that. Well, why don't you turn around and show everyone else your signs? Show them your signs. Look at that. Wow. Beautiful.
I love you.
Amen.
I love you. We love you.
That's great. That's great.
Too fun. I'm crazy about you.
That's great.
That is too fun.
Beautiful.
Oh, thank
Beautiful.
you.
Amen. Beautiful. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah. In fact, I attended one of their Monday evening programs, and man, God is doing a powerful thing in this group, and so glad Cave Junction is here tonight, and of course we welcome all of you. There's a story in the Gospels, Gospel of Mark, chapter 5, and I'm not going to get into the details of this story, but I'll tell you one thing. Here's a man who was enslaved by the enemy.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Okay, put that down for a minute.
Put this down.
Is it
So, she's like, what are you doing? That's my story. See, we didn't talk about this. So, I was crafting a nice little intro, But you know what, though? What Cheri is going to do tonight will be in obedience to a commission that Jesus gave a man who found freedom. He was told to go to friends and family and tell them what the Lord has done for you. And now he has had compassion on you. And so I believe that the Spirit of God is gonna move in our hearts here tonight. And so I'm done.
Thank you.
So let me offer a prayer.
All right.
Let's get started with prayer, and let's begin. Father in heaven, Lord, within the first few minutes, we're already family. It's so good to be able to be together tonight. Lord, your Holy Spirit is here, already ministering to our hearts. And Lord, we are just very privileged and thankful that Cheri will be here tonight to tell us her story. Lord, have your own way in our hearts. Holy Spirit, just do what you do best. Tonight we're here to encounter the gentle healer, Jesus Christ. And so we thank you, Lord, because you are here in this place. May all that is said and done be for your honor and glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So it's really interesting because I see a couple, is this on? Okay, I see a couple people that have gone through the program, so you probably know me well. Just because week to week we've really spent time together, which is amazing. I see some people here that you probably have no idea who I am. Is that right? Can I just ask them a favor? Because I'm such an opportunist. I have them right here. We do a 14-week program, a friendship recovery program, and it's not just on addictions, it's on a number of things, eating disorders and depression and all that kind of stuff. We don't have anything for kids, for teens. How stupid is that? I think we should have some, but I don't have any teen testimonies. You guys would have that. So I am, every once in a while, just asking an academy, would you work with me putting my program into your language? And I would take it all over the world. So just keep that in mind, and I'm serious about that. One of these days, I'm going to have an academy say we would love to do that. You could play a few bells if you want to. All right. And now raise your hand if you're here for the first time, have no idea what this is about. Okay, good. A couple of folks. We're going to do a weekend on kind of on recovery, but not recovery just from drugs and alcohol, because when somebody told me one time, Cheri, if you stopped shooting heroin, you would be okay, right? And I stopped, and I was crazy as. You know what I mean? I thought, this doesn't feel okay, and I just felt really crazy. So what I realized in recovery is really a bigger picture than just stopping something. And so we're going to talk about what recovery is. 73% or 75% of all addictions have nothing to do with drugs and alcohol. I was surprised at that. It has, workaholism. I have a friend that's a workaholic. You can call her up anytime, day or night, and say, friend, I have some things I've got to get done by tomorrow. Can you help me? And she would say what? Absolutely. And the next day she would have it done. Not only done, it would be better than what you could imagine ever doing. I mean, she was really good. So workaholism or cutting or depression or anger or religious addictions. Raise your hand if you have a religious addiction. I love there's a few people just moving their shoulders, but religious addictions are really tough, and they're really binding. I mean, they keep us really locked up, and they can keep us pushed away from everyone. We destroy most of the relationships around us, and we think we're doing the right thing until you actually break away from those. So we're going to talk about addictions, but all kinds of different addictions. We're going to talk about, I think, one of the biggest things in your recovery walk, regardless of where you're coming from, that's healing, and that's some forgiveness issues. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow, and we're going to talk about restoration, which I love. It's my favorite topic, is how is God able and capable of restoring us when we have trashed each other as much as we have trashed ourselves and each other. And so that's going to be the next couple days. Then hopefully they're going to start the 14-week program here that you guys are doing. And you guys are on week what? 12. Week 12? So you're almost, I wish it was 14, we'd do graduation together. How fun would that be? So what did you think of the program so far? And isn't it nice to start having friendships around you in your journey? I mean, it really is cool. We're doing the program all over the world. Started in Australia and New Zealand was our pilot programs. We did a program in New Zealand, our pilot program, and a couple people from the community came, and they had 163 baptisms. And I thought, stop. And it was only because at the end of the program, people just liked each other. Do you know what I mean? They just liked each other, they were friends, and they started to heal in that way. So we're going to talk about healing, connection, recovery. If there is, yes, ma'am. Do I have to be on the platform? I feel very comfortable here. No. Okay, I'm going to start with, because especially with people that don't know anything about me, I'm just going to give my testimony. I hope that's okay with people that have heard me week after week. I'm going to try to do it in a way that my husband was supposed to come with me this weekend. And he's a trumpet player, so he was going to come play the trumpet and stuff. But he couldn't come because his mother had an accident. So I'm going to talk about meeting him, because it was really kind of a funny thing. I'm in recovery, been doing recovery for a while, and I did some groups, got into some groups. I ended up learning how to read and going back to school, because I was fairly illiterate when I stepped into recovery. Went back to school, got into nursing, and I loved recovery. I mean, I just loved recovery. And I ended up going into a nursing program. I ran a number of programs for addicts and for gang members and, just about anybody, because, I just loved what I did. And after 10, 15 years, a friend of mine said, do you do anything for fun? And I thought, fun? I'm breathing. Does anybody know addicts that just, you're breathing, and that's amazing. I'm thinking, that's fun. And I literally, at one point, I was working with some gang members, and we were doing incredible stuff. It was amazing to work with them. And the mayor of my town got me to join them in the 4th of July parade, and I was the grand marshal in the 4th of July parade. And I'm a heroin addict in recovery, and I'm riding in the top car going like this. It was just the weirdest thing, and I thought, that is really fun. I was working with kids, and this is further on, but I was working with kids, and I went to a trailer park with a number of meth addicts. Does anybody know any meth addicts? So I went to a trailer park with a bunch of meth addicts, and I'm trying to help the little kids in recovery, because my whole family are addicts. My grandparents are addicts. My parents are addicts. My brothers and sisters are addicts. My sister has all her teeth rotted out. Her hair's falling out in patches, and she's like 80 pounds, if that much. And so, I'm surrounded by addicts. So I really have a heart for kids that are being raised by meth addicts or by alcoholics or whatever. So I went to this trailer park, and I went up and I said to this little kid, hey, how are you? And I was just going to say, hi, I'd like to meet your parents. And I was going to ask him if if we could help in any way. And he's like 6 years old, and he cussed me out. And I'm thinking, you're a little kid, and he's telling me everything. He's using words, and I'm thinking, you shouldn't even know these words now. And when I realized, I looked at myself, and I was dressed up pretty nicely, And I thought, you know what, I look like Mary Poppins, or a social worker. And so I think for this kid, he thought I was a social worker. He thought I was coming in to remove him from his home. And he just told me everything that he could tell me. And I couldn't even figure out what are we going to do with this kid? Because we can't just come up and say, hi, can I help you? Because they don't trust anybody. And before long, I prayed about it and was looking at different things we could do. And before long, I had 9 horses donated to me in a horse ranch to bring kids on and teach them how to ride. So, I mean, my life is fun, is going really well. But she says, what do you do for fun? So I said, I'm in recovery. And she said, no, fun, just fun. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, just fun. I got a job working at the Philharmonic, raising money, and let's go to a concert. Have you guys gone to a classical concert? I hadn't. I never, And so I said to her, I laughed because I said, you know what? I don't even know if they would let recovering drug addicts go to a classical concert. I think somehow I would walk in the door and bells would go off, like at the airport, And so I started laughing. I said, I don't think so. And she said, oh, stop, that's ridiculous. I said, you know what? It just seems too grand. I mean, I was homeless for 10 years. It just seems too big and too grand and too whatever. And she's like, no, you got to come. It'd be just amazing. And so I said to her, I don't even know what to wear going to a concert like that. And she said, wear whatever you want to. You can wear jeans if you want and a shirt, or you can wear a gown. It really is, nobody cares about that, so wear whatever you want. And what do you think I wore? What do you think? No. You know what I should have? I'd have been more comfortable if I wore a gown, because I just am like that. I thought the first time in my life that I ever got dressed up and totally dressed up, I felt like Cinderella. I looked in the mirror like, look at you. You just look, I just looked hot, actually. It was pretty amazing. And she said one thing to me. She said, we're going to go to this concert, but it's not like a rock concert. You can't just come up any time and come in. You have to come on time and go sit down before the music starts and all that kind of stuff, and you have to be on time. And I said, yeah, I'll be on time. And so I'm totally on time, totally ready, looking amazing, feeling amazing, and she's late. And I'm thinking, no way, she's late. And I'm pacing, I'm looking out the window, and I'm thinking, she said to be on time. We won't be able to get in. We'll have to wait for the next movement to come on. And, so I'm pacing, and she finally shows up. And I go out to the car, and she's like, I'm so sorry. Get in the car. And we are pretty much running stop signs to get to this concert hall. Instead of going through the box office, we have our tickets. She said, let's just go through the backstage entrance. And I'm thinking, is that legal? I haven't been arrested in a long time. I don't want to be arrested at the symphony. And I started laughing, and she said, I think it's going to be okay. And I'm thinking, you either know it's okay or it's not okay. You just can't think it's going to be okay. So we go through the backstage entrance, and it was not okay. It is not okay. And so we get caught. And the first thing they ask is, what are you doing? And I'm looking at her like, what are we doing, So what are you doing? And so I'm thinking, okay, we got tickets, and she's telling them we got tickets, and we're late, and we're not going to make it. So I'm volunteering with fundraising, so we're just going to go sit down. And they explained to us why they don't like people just coming in the backstage entrance, because when they go on stage and play, all of their instruments are there. All their personal belongings are there. They just don't want people walking in and out. But remember how I looked? Hot. And so all of a sudden, one guy just said, he's explaining to different things, and she looks at me and she says, she's never been to a concert before. And they all looked at me like I was a foster kid. Do you know what I mean, that look? And so he says, you've never been to a concert? Are you kidding me? And so he starts singing pieces of the piece that's going to be played. And he said, it's going to start out with the French horn, and here's what the French horn is going to do, and the violin's going to answer, and then goes back and forth, and he said the theme of this piece, and told me all that kind of stuff. And now I'm dumbfounded. I'm thinking, how amazing is that? I didn't know it had a theme, you know. And he says, you know, can I take you to your seat? And I don't know why, but I wanted to get a T-shirt that said, I'm a mess. And I have always been a mess. You need to run, right? Has anybody met someone that you should have ran? You know what I mean? So you need to run. I think I should have a hat or a T-shirt or something. And he's looking at me, and he's like taking us to our seat. And at one point he says, you know, after the concert's over, we're going to have a party for the trombone player. It's his birthday. Would you guys like to come? And I want that hat. Run, buddy. You don't even know. And, you know, I haven't done a relationship right in my life. In my life. I don't think my mother has. I don't think my grandmother has. I think it's genetic. I think we've all messed up in our life. And you need to run. And he's just looking at me because I just look adorable. And it's like, he's like, you know, I'd like you guys to come. And so after the concert, they're all going to the Hyatt Regency, and they're going to sit in with the band and have this birthday party. The concert was amazing. And, you know, I heard everything that he was talking about. The French horn player started, went to the violins, went to, you know, I heard all of that, and I watched them play, and it was just magical. And afterwards, we go to the Hyatt, and I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, that was just the best. It was the best. And now the musicians are sitting in with the jazz group. And so the music is really different. But, you know, this one trumpet player is just doing these screaming trumpet licks with this jazz group, and it's just amazing. And I look up, and I'm thinking, you are so good. And when I looked up at him, he was giving me the eye. And I thought, oh, where's my hat? You need to run. You know, and even he came down and he's just like so just sweet. And he says, would you dance with me? I said, no. And I wanted to say, you need to run. No, you know. And he's like, what? Just dance with me. And I'm thinking, no. And he's dressed how, do you think? In a tux. I'm in a gown. I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. So finally I said yes, just because it would be too weird to keep saying no. And we're dancing around the room. And I think stars are going off. I think there's hearts floating around the room. It was so crazy. And finally I said, I need to sit down. And I sat down, and he came up and he said, who are you? And it's like one of those, where have you been all my life? And I thought, you know, I got to get this guy off the hook. I said, I'm a heroin addict in recovery. Was homeless for 10 years. I'm just trying to get my life together. My sister has a porn site on the internet and sells coke for a living. My grandmother is alcoholic. They're trying to remove parts of her feet because she's got diabetes, you know. And so I just went on, and he could not find it. He just started laughing. You know, my sister makes meth out of my mom's garage and deals. She has, I mean, you know, so who are you, you know? And he can't stop laughing long enough to tell me. So finally I said, who are you? And he said, my dad's an ambassador to the United States to Bangladesh. I thought, how funny is that? He said, I was a Boy Scout till I was 18, Eagle Scout. And I could not stop laughing. He said, I said, so you were somewhat of a geek, right? And he said, you were homeless. You know, I said, what's the difference, you know? So we just both laughed and laughed and laughed and had a great time, just a great time. It talks a little bit about where I came from. I was born, you know, to a 14-year-old girl that I was her second child. And so we talked about that. My mom, I think, tried to self-abort like 6 different times. She did not want to have another child. My dad was 15 or 16. And raise your hand if you drank alcohol in high school. Not you guys, because you get busted. Everybody keep their hands down over here. All right. No, I'm sorry. So anyway, and I won't call you guys out for anything. If I say raise your hand if you have a porn addiction, don't do it. Raise your hand if you know any of that stuff. So anyway, so my dad actually started drinking in high school. My mom was put in the 9th grade when she was 12, I think. She went up ahead a couple grades, and so she was emotionally not in a place to deal with high school kids, and my dad liked her, got her drunk, got her pregnant, and she had my sister. But by the time she had my sister, now my dad is quitting school. You guys, are you listening? All right. So my dad is quitting school, has to get a job, and now has to raise his child. And my dad, I don't know about any of you guys. Probably you, I can answer this too. My dad was pretty cocky, you know. He'd be going like to his boss, "Are you talking to me?" I'm just curious if you were talking to me just now, because you must have been talking to someone else. And so he would get right in his face, and he would get fired. I don't know if you could relate to that at all. But so with my dad, and then he would get so angry because he would get fired that he would go home to my mom and blame her. And he would just grab her by the back of the head and slam her head into something. So, I mean, he was violent with her, angry at her. If it wasn't for you, I would still be in school. I wouldn't be doing all this kind of stuff. And so, anyway, they started out their married life. And I don't even know why, but families, when they decide to let kids get married like that, it's just they were just so young. My mom realized early on that this was not going to be happy ever after. You know, I think that she really felt like she'd get pregnant and everything would be wonderful. My dad drank more and more and more. So, you know, I'm telling Brad, I think I told him everything. My dad started molesting us when I was 3 months old. I was born their second child. My mom decided she was not going to have a second child, so she tried everything to abort, all that kind of stuff. Ended up going in the hospital, having me, went home, got into a depression, didn't take care of us at all. I think she just pulled away. And then my dad stepped in, and he was sexually pretty twisted. So he was in our lives until I was 4. My mom had one child after another. So she had 5 kids before she was in her 20s. But I don't remember her touching me. I don't remember her saying, you know, "I love you, come sit here." You know, I don't know about anybody else, but even to this day, if somebody says, "Come sit here," like what you guys just did for me, man, how healing is that? Come sit here. We love you. I mean, there's something incredibly healing about that. But our whole household was just crazy. So my mom had all these kids. My dad was out of control. My mom kicks my dad out, moves a bartender in. And I'm going to get back to that, but I got to say with Brad, I'm telling him all this stuff, and we just laughed all night long. We just laughed. We started to realize that we would never date. I mean, I have this crazy family. His dad's an engineer, and his ambassadorship is he goes into other countries, when they have civil wars and stuff, and he's the ambassador for the United States, the team that goes and rebuilds that infrastructure of that country. And I'm thinking, how funny is that? You know, I mean, it's just so different. So Brad and I start seeing each other. We start hanging out together. We start working out together. I'm not sure why, but we started going to the gym together. I found out that he likes golf, and he said, you know, "Can I teach you how to play golf?" Are there any golfers in the room? So can I teach you how to play golf? And I thought, yeah, that'd be fun. So he showed me how to swing, went on the driving range a bit, and he said, you know, "I want you to hit the ball from here, over, up, and over to this hole over here." So I thought, wow, right. And it was perfect. And he thought, "I love you." So with a golfer, it's weird. Because if you are hot and you can play golf, I mean, it's just like, and I don't mean to say that, but I mean, in his eyes, that's what the combination was. So one day, I'm not doing much, and he comes over, and he has a present for me, a gift. And I said, you know, "What is that?" Because it's not my birthday. I'm not sure what's going on. And he gives it to me, and he said, "I want you just to open it." And I opened it, and it was a brand new pair of golf shoes. And I'm telling you, for a golfer, that's like an engagement ring. You know? So all of a sudden, I realized this is pretty serious. I got these golf shoes, and so I said to him, "I think that before we go any further, you need to meet my family." you know. And he says, you know, I've told him about my family. I've joked about my family. And I joke about my family a lot, but I love them. I would give anything for every family member to be in recovery. And, you know, so, you know, I do joke about them a lot. I joke about our addictions. I joke about how we were raised. But, I mean, I really love them. And so I said, we need to go home, and I need you to meet them. And he's like, well, how bad could it be? And I'm thinking, please raise your hand if you can relate to this next statement. I wanted to call ahead and just say, I'm bringing someone home. Can you be normal just for 24 hours? You know? So I wasn't going to say, could you be normal for the rest of your life? Because I don't want to stress anybody out. But just 24 hours. And if that's too much to ask, can you just be normal for a few hours? You know, because and my sister, the meth addict, she's funny. You're bringing someone home? Are you kidding me? You never bring anyone home. You know, that is so, you know, and so, you know, everybody's excited because I don't bring people home. And they know that, and so they're thrilled. And then they say, what does he do for a living? And I don't want to say, because I don't care. Please be honest on this next one. As addicts, we are arrogant. And I would say, I'm going to say he's a classical musician, and they're going to make fun of him. And I'm thinking, you're a drug addict. You know, you have a porn site. Don't make fun of him, you know. And so I finally said he's a classical musician, and they started laughing and made fun of him. And I'm thinking, wait, you know. But to Brad, when we were first seeing each other, he said to me, is there any vocalists over here? He said to me, I love to sing. And I can't sing a note, but I love vocalists, right? So I said, you love to sing? And he said, yeah, I wanted to be a singer at one time. And I said, really? Why don't you sing something for me? And he broke out and sang this opera. And you know, operas go on and on. They just never stop. You just want to say, is that it? No, that was just the first movement, you know. And so I think, don't ever do that in front of my friends. Don't do that in front of my family. You're just not going to survive that. So I understand that it's easy to tease. But I said, you know, I'm bringing someone home and be nice, and we're just going to stay. We're going to come in on Christmas Eve night, probably late by the time we get there. We're going to stay Christmas Day. And I work it out in my family because I'm in recovery. Does anybody have a place where you know that you can stay clean only for this many hours? So at my family's house, I can stay clean probably for 4 or 5 hours. After that, I so desperately want to fit in. I get tempted. Not because I want to drink or use. I just know that they're going to places that I don't belong unless I drink or use. And so I usually stay for just a few hours. So I know that at my family's house, if you can get there in the morning, anybody know what I'm saying? That they're not going to start drinking a lot until like 11. And then by 4, 5, 6 o'clock at night, it's probably done, right? So you can stay during that time, and you can have some kind of decent time with them. So I get there, and we go to sleep. This sounds weird for a lot of people, but Brad and I, we're not sleeping together. And my family could not understand that at all. You can sleep with them. No. We actually, and you know, has anybody tried to do the right thing nowadays? I mean, try to do the right thing. It's crazy. People will look at like, yeah, no, go ahead. My daughter was getting married, and my sister, the stripper, called, and she said, have you slept with him yet? Because, you know, what if you don't like the way he, you know? And I'm thinking, stop talking to her. She's 18 years old, you know. But anyway, so we get there, we're in different places. Brad gets up first because he's an early riser. I am not. I am not a morning person. But Brad gets up first and goes into the kitchen, and my stepdad, my mom's boyfriend, I call him my dad, but he's my mom's boyfriend, is sitting at the kitchen table like, you want some of this? And Brad is looking at him like he doesn't even know what to say. Remember, he was a Boy Scout, right? So he's like, the only thing he could think of is that legal? You know? And my dad is thinking, like, who is this? Who did she bring home, you know? And so he's already done a couple lines. He's already smoked some weed. He is in a great place. Brad is looking for breakfast. maybe some eggs or something. And what was really funny about Brad looking for breakfast is, and raise your hand if you have a family like this, is my family does the best drugs ever on holidays. What do you mean breakfast? It's Christmas. And so, my sister brings meth, my other sister brings coke, everybody's smoking weed. My mom is, and Brad didn't believe this, but anyhow, so he's talking with my dad, and finally he says, I just was looking for breakfast, and maybe just orange juice, And my dad says, well, we have orange juice. They're not liking each other at all. He's like, we have orange juice. What do you think, He's like, do you want anything in it? And Brad's thinking just orange juice would be really good, And so by the time I get up, I could tell something's wrong. And when you're around a bunch of addicts, what's really funny is if they feel uncomfortable about somebody not using, everybody goes out to the garage to look at someone's transmission. do you know what I'm saying? It's like, got a new car. I think the transmission's acting up. Well, let's go see it. No, they don't know what they're doing at all, but they go get high and then come back in. So the only people in the house are the people not using, and they're just sitting there waiting for whatever. So anyway, that's the morning starts like that. My sister shows up, and my sister, my favorite sister, is a stripper, and she walks like a stripper. She's like, is Brad around? And I just want to say, Cindy, just stop. Just act normal. And she said, this is normal. I'm just not sure what you're talking about. And so anyway, her and her boyfriend come. Her boyfriend is probably, I don't know, it's just a huge guy, maybe 6'4", 6'5", powerhouse. Doesn't talk a lot, but has a brand new Bentley and sells coke for a living. So he walks in with my sister, and it looks like the mafia, and the stripper just walked in. We're in California. She's in this really cute little outfit, and Brad is now nervous. My dad is like, he looks really uptight. And my sister is just walking around. She's just like, she doesn't bring people home too much. So, nice meeting you. You know what I mean, And then she does this one thing, and if people get offended with this, I just try not to. If people get offended with this, but she walks up to me after she starts drinking a bit, and she says, do you notice anything different? I know, it's frightening. It was for me, too. So she says, no, I just got my boobs done, feel. So Brad is like, did she just do that? Did she just ask you to feel her boobs? And then the more she drinks, she wants you to know that she had a good surgeon. You can't even see the scar. You want to see it? And literally, now she's showing you the nipple because they took the nipple off, did this kind of augmentation through the nipple, and put it back on. And so she will let you look as long as you need to look. You're not going to be able to see it. And I'm thinking, just put your top down. Just put your top down. What about this normal thing? Just 15, just be normal. And Brad, the whole time, is trying to look anywhere else. Like, he's like looking at me like I didn't look. And I said, you did look. How could you not look? She's adorable. So then my younger sister gets there, and my younger sister is adorable. She's, if you don't take into the account that she has pus and sores all over her face, hairs and patches, all her teeth are rotted. She's about, I would say 80 pounds, but I think that's exaggerating. I think she's less than that. And the whole time, she just walked in like, where is he? Oh, there you are. Come give me a hug. I think she really likes you because she never brings anyone home at all, ever. Come on. And the whole time, Brad is just like, and she leaps over and just kind of puts her legs around him and hugs him. And she said he could feel every bone in her body. It's like you could just feel. And he said, I just felt like she was dying. I felt like, does anybody see that this kid is dying? And my mom, I always call her a pharmaceutical regulator. And Brad didn't know what that meant. So I explained to him what that meant. But until you see it, You just can't even get it. But if you are smoking too much weed and drinking and you get sloppy drunk, my mom comes over with some diet pills. Just take these, hon. And if you get too hyper because you've done some meth, she comes over with a cup of Valium. Just take this. And she regulates the group. So everybody's kind of on the same high. Does anybody have a relative like that? And so people think I'm joking. That's what she's done our whole life. And it's really tough because I'm now sober, and she wants to give me something. And I'm thinking, you just, no thanks, but thank you. I know the thought was good, But anyhow, so my sister's there, the meth addict with her boyfriend that makes meth together. And sometimes I think, I've never done meth. My drug of choice is heroin and alcohol, but heroin primarily. But, with meth, sometimes I think they mix it up wrong because they just have crank sores, and sometimes they just look a mess. And so they didn't look particularly that good this Christmas. But she had this really cute little Christmas dress on because she's from California. So she had this cute little outfit on. And pretty soon she's like, you know what? We need to open some presents because I got you something. You are just going to love this. It's so amazing. And so we went around the Christmas tree, and we've got Mafia. We've got the stripper. We've got my dad that is just my mom's boyfriend that's smoking pot. We got my mom. We got my sister into meth and her boyfriend. And it's just this whole group. It's just kind of an interesting group. And then you have these two people, one that's not a druggie at all. She did that. I could not control myself. And I think that she just held me. And I could tell that it was like she just held me. I became one of her favorite kids. Every time I saw her, I only saw her once a year, but every time I saw her, she was right there and telling me jokes, and we'd hang out, and she'd tell me, and if you guys have heard this, I'm sorry, but you just have to hear it again, but she'd tell me this one joke every single time I saw her, every year. And the joke was, I'm going to say the joke, you say pea soup after everything I say. Like, what'd you have for breakfast? What'd you have for lunch? What'd you have for dinner? What'd you do all night? And as a little kid, I thought that was the funniest thing I've ever heard. I would laugh and laugh and laugh. My sisters and brothers would say, that's not funny, and we would just laugh. And what was really fun about her is I just knew she loved me. And one time I went over there, I was like 8 years old. I couldn't see her car, and I simply said to my mom, where's Annie Kay's car? And my mom said, your aunt is dead. I don't want you crying because you're going to upset your grandmother. And I thought, I think the only thing I said to her is that she couldn't be dead because she would have taken me with her. She wouldn't leave me here by myself. And I don't know if I even knew what I was saying. I just know that she couldn't be dead. She wouldn't leave me here. She was probably the person in my life that got me through those early years of my life. It was just, I couldn't even imagine. And I didn't really know what dead meant. And this is just because we have such an age range. Raise your hand if you know that there was a time when if somebody suicided, no one talked about it ever. So I was in that time. Nowadays, people talk about suicide a lot. At that time, they didn't. So I think they were worried about me bringing that up from my grandmother again, that her sister suicided. And she had killed herself. She was bipolar. She killed herself in a depression. If you are bipolar, we make the best no. If you are bipolar, don't do anything during a depression. Do you hear what I'm saying? Because they always lift. And it's like you've got to learn how to deal with that, but I don't think that she knew that at that time. So anyhow, my mom said to wait outside until I got it together, and I couldn't get it together. I just kept crying, and I kept thinking that I'm not going to survive this. And I remember thinking that I just miss her. She can't be dead. And that I was sitting outside, and the clouds kind of parted, and you know how the sun filters through the clouds? I didn't hear anybody's voice, but I heard in my head, what did you have for breakfast? And for some reason, I thought, I don't know why, but it's going to be okay. I went in the house, did Christmas like everybody else. We opened presents. I went home. And I remember even getting home, and I thought, you know what? I think I'm just going to kill myself. Yeah. And so I'm trying to figure out a way. Has anybody known anybody that's tried to kill themselves or has killed themselves? So I decided I'm going to get home and I'm going to find a way to kill myself. And I looked around for, how do you do it and what do you do? And I was 8 years old, so I just didn't know. And I looked at the house itself and I thought, I'll just jump off the house, because that's for sure going to kill me, And so I found a place to jump looking from up to the house, but it was right on the driveway, and it's an asphalt driveway. And I thought, I'll just jump right onto the asphalt driveway, and it would kill me. And it took me forever. I climbed up on the top of the house. It was a one-story house, but when you're 8, it looks really big. So I climbed up on the top of the house, and I leaped off. And did I tell you before I went up there that I put a mattress down? So when I leaped off, I landed on this mattress. And it was like nothing. I mean, I didn't scratch anything, nothing. I was just laying there. And somebody came outside, and they said, what are you doing? Go play. And I got off the mattress like, okay, And so that my first suicide attempt was ridiculous. I didn't like pain. I didn't want to hurt myself. I just wanted to die. And I think that I've done a number of suicide attempts since then. But our household was just that crazy. I think my aunt kept me alive when I was younger. My dad was kicked out when I was 4 because of the molesting. My mom moved the bartender in who was up and down with his alcoholism. I ended up, when I did the jump off the house, I hurt my leg, and I started to limp. And so my mom sends me, finally has to take me to Children's Hospital because the limp wouldn't go away. It was getting worse, and it was painful. And so she takes me to Children's Hospital. And when I got to Children's Hospital, is anybody going to nursing? Is anybody? So when I got to Children's Hospital, I could not believe it. They called me by my first name, and they asked me a question, and they waited for me to answer. I'm like, really? And I just, when they touched me, it was safe, and it was nice. It was just like a weird thing. It was just so nice and safe, and I thought, this is so cool. And the nurses were, they had to do range of motion, so they put me in a swimming pool. And I thought, for a kid, how fun is this? So I'm going to go swimming. I'm going to be in a pool. I get to see these nurses. They did x-rays on my leg, and they found out that I aggravated what's called a Perthes disease that I must have had since I was tiny, but they just hadn't caught it. They aggravated that. So they're going to put me in braces and crutches, and I have to come to the hospital for therapy 3 times a week. And I thought, that was, I love this hospital. I love these nurses. And then I went to school with braces and crutches. Can I just ask you, do you think when I went to school with braces and crutches that I was accepted or teased? Teased. I went to school, somebody tripped me in the hallway. And I'm thinking, really, yesterday you didn't even see me, and today, because I have crutches, you're going to trip me? And I was just like, I had so much abuse at home. It was so crazy at home, I thought, I'm not going to do this at school, too. And I tried to think about what I'm going to do to get around that. And I came up with a plan. I think it was genius. I think it was actually God. I have to check with him when I get to heaven. But I saw a hallway, and I thought, I'm just going to run down this hallway. And the brace, you can lock the knee of the brace to where it's straight, and you can, it has a rubber tip on the bottom of it, and you can lock it, or you can unlock it to sit. So I locked it. I ran down the hallway. I hit my crutches down first, and I pole vaulted myself about 25 feet. And one kid looked at me and said, wow, I'd like to try that. And I thought, well, how much money do you have? So I started renting my braces out for people's lunch money. What was fun about that is I became very popular at school. And so it was like I got to go to the hospital 3 times a week. I loved that, physical therapy. My mom had to take me. Has anybody been from an abused house? My mom never even ate with us. I mean, for her to have to take me and sit with me, I thought, you know what? She's going to learn that I'm fun. She's going to learn that I'm lovable and all that kind of stuff. And we'd go to Children's Hospital, and right across the street was a pancake house. So she would say, well, let's go have breakfast. And then to your appointment. And I'm like, breakfast, you and me? I want to cry like a baby. That is just amazing, miraculous. It's like, are you kidding me? And so we'd go to breakfast, and then I would get something to eat, and she would look at me like, you chew just like a cow. That's just irritating. And so she'd get irritated. And I'd think, you know what? I'm not going to chew then, because I'm not going to irritate you at all during this time. I'll do everything perfectly. And I remember thinking I'm going to do everything perfectly. She didn't like the fact that I took too long to order. Well, it's a pancake house, so let's just have pancakes. If you ever have me over to your house, don't give me pancakes. It's too traumatizing for me. But, it's like, because I had pancakes every time, and the children's hospital was amazing. One kid in particular, and it was kind of a cool kid, because he reminded me kind of you. And he came up to me, like one of the first times I'm in the pool with the rest of the kids, and he said, "Hey, do you want to race me across the pool?" And I said, "No." And he said, "What are you, chicken?" And I'm like, "I'm not chicken." He said, "Let's race across the pool." I said, "No." And he said, "Come on." And I'm like, "No." And finally I said to him, I'm not going to be nice about this, but you don't have any arms, And he didn't. He just had fingers sticking out from his shoulder, no arms at all. I said, "If we get in the pool and we race across the pool, I'm going to beat you." And he's like, "Get in." And I'm like, "I'm not going to give you a head start." And I'm trying to just like, can we just talk here? And I finally get in, and he swims like a dolphin. He's like, he beat me with no problem. It was like he was just beat me. And I thought, how did you do that? And he laughed. He said, "I learned to swim this way." And the next new person that came in, I watched him walk over and say, "Hey, want to race across the pool?" And he did that with all the new kids. But I remember going from this depression and feeling suicidal to laughing and having a great time and thinking that it's finally going to work out. I'm hanging out with my mom. I'm getting this really cool stuff at Children's Hospital, 3 times a week. I'm renting out my braces. I'm very popular at school. I had a total hip replacement because I didn't wear the braces, so I probably shouldn't have rented them out so much. But anyhow, so I thought everything was going well. What I didn't know was that my mom and her boyfriend felt like it was too much work. Now that I had to go to the hospital and do all that kind of stuff, it was taking time from the other kids and from them, and they were going to send me to live somewhere else. And I was having breakfast with my mom, and she said, "I just have something serious to tell you." I thought she was going to tell me that she just fell in love with me. I don't know why I thought that, but I thought, she's going to tell me that something. And she said, "We are going to send you to live in Canada with an aunt." And I'm thinking, no, thank you, Because I can't get you to like me, and I sit next to you every night. You know what I mean? If I go to Canada, you're going to forget me. You'll never think about me again. And I remember saying that, how about if I just do everything? I'll do all the chores. I won't do anything wrong. Has anybody ever been sent away? It's a weird thing to be sent away, because I kept thinking I don't want to leave. And I lived in our house. Child Protective Services came to our house a few times. Our house was filthy. Filthy. You could walk into the bathroom and stick to the floor. It was just filthy. The sink was busted. We had a 1-bedroom bathroom house. The sink was busted in the bathroom and was fixed like years and years later. If we brushed our teeth at all, we brushed our teeth in the bathtub. But, it was just that kind of place. So it wasn't that, it was such a great place, but I just loved them. And I just didn't want to be sent away. My mom finally said it was for my own good. I got sent to Canada to live with this aunt. And this aunt was, she was 70 years old or so, a diabetic Christian. I'd never met a Christian before. Christian. And when I went into her house, there was a dead guy on a cross just hanging there. I said, "Who's that?" And she said, "That's God." And I went, "Oh, great." Because I didn't even ask her anymore about that, because I thought that was just a bizarre thing. And she would try everything. She tried to pray with me and love me. And I remember thinking that, "I hate you." And I would scream at her, "I hate you. You can't keep me here. This is like kidnapping." And she would just say, "I love you, and you can stay here for the rest of your life." And I would just scream, "You cannot keep me here. You need to send me home." One time, I had my, I want to see if I grabbed your face, can you hold your mouth as tight as you can and not let me open it? Can you do that? As tight as you can, closed. You got it? It looks good. You're going in the right direction. Yeah, I'm talking to you. I know it's frightening. So my aunt would come up to me and she'd say, "Can I see your teeth?" And I'd get mad at her. And she'd shut your mouth tight. And so I'd say, "No, you can't." And she would be going like, "Come on." And I would be like, "Get off of my face." And finally she got my mouth open only because I was screaming, and she stuck her hand in there. I won't do that to you because it'd be embarrassing. But so she got my hand in there, and she said I had plaque all over my teeth. And she said, "You know what? We can get this off your teeth if we brush your teeth with baking soda." And I remember saying to her, "I don't even have to brush my teeth at home." And she just picked me up and walked towards the bathroom. And I would be screaming, "Can't do this. This has got to be against the law." And every time I would scream, she'd stick a toothbrush in my mouth. And so she really tried as much as she could just to do, thank you so much. Give her a hand. So anyhow, she tried as much as she could to do the right thing. She tried, like I said, every time I screamed, she would just brush my teeth. If I told her, "You can't do this, this is not legal," she would just pick me up and do that because I was just tiny. Finally, about a year into my staying there, even the school psychologist said, "You got to send her home." I was not talking at school. I refused to speak. I refused to do work. I refused everything, and they sent me back home. When I got home, my stepdad, or my mom's boyfriend, said, he was drunk and he was not doing well, and he just said, "You know what, one time something happened," and he said, "The happiest times of our lives was when you were gone, and we do not want you back here." And I remember thinking, I don't know what I did wrong. I can't even guess what I did wrong, but I'm done. I'm just done trying to get you to like me. I'm done trying to convince you that I'm okay. And somebody had said at one point that people do drugs and alcohol because they don't want to deal with their problems. And I thought, okay, then I need to find some drugs. And I found somebody that would give me as much drugs as I wanted. How old was I? 10, 11 years old? As much drugs as I wanted. I just want to, do you think they were safe? Not at all. So I found somebody that would give me as much as I wanted. And I remember thinking the first time I took a drug is that I took 5 Quaaludes. So I don't know if I could remember anything after that. But what I remembered about that day was I didn't feel like killing myself. And I thought, how cool was this? And once I took them, I didn't feel like killing you. And I thought, that was good for both you and I. And I thought, I just have to stay high for the rest of my life. I just need to find drugs. And I started to do drugs every day. I mean, I don't remember a day going by. I ended up getting pregnant. I delivered twins when I was almost 13 years old. I turned 13 in August, and I had twins in June. They were a pound each because I was taking so many things. I remember, even at the time, I thought I was going to be the best mother anybody could ever be, not thinking that everything I was taking was killing them. But I thought I would finally have someone to love. I would finally have someone to take care of. I was going to be a great mother. Does anybody ever felt like that when they've been using? It's like it's so crazy what we think. But the boy tried to fight. He tried to live for about 8 hours. He fought, but he didn't survive. And I remember for the first time going into depression and feeling like I'm just not going to make this. The doctor came in, and he wanted to make sure that I knew that was my fault that they died. And he said, "This is your fault. What you took killed them." And I remember thinking that was the meanest thing anyone's ever said. When I was getting out of the hospital, my mom said I should marry the person that got me pregnant. I'm thinking, I'm not pregnant anymore. But we went ahead and went into Mexico and got married. He was in the Navy. He was 21 years old. We got married. He moved me into his mother's house. Do you think his mom liked me? I'm a 13-year-old drug addict that just ruined her son's life. When she came into the room, she would shake almost. She didn't, she would try to be nice. She tried to invite me to eat with them and all those kind of things, but it was almost impossible for her to do it. It was just so difficult. The only thing I thought at that age is, what is it? I would look in the mirror and say, what is it? Because I don't even know her, and I'm getting the same reaction, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. And so I then realized that I'm an adult. I don't have to be here. And I left her house. and I ended up on the streets of Los Angeles. On the streets of LA, there's 80,000 kids like me on the streets of Los Angeles. Anybody want to hear that again? 80,000. I ended up on the streets. Within 24 hours, you are picked up and funneled into a $32 million industry. Kids they don't last too long. A lot of times in major cities, you will not see kids on the streets because they were used until they are strung out or crazy. So when you see them, usually they're crazy or strung out. Before then, they're still out there. They're just being moved around. And so I ended up on the streets of L.A. I got into heroin. Heroin was my drug of choice. I think I could deal with anything as long as I was high. I was still looking for normal people. Raise your hand if there's anybody normal here, because I'm on this quest, you know. It's like, is there anybody normal? But I was looking for normal people. One time I'm at a drug house, and I'll never forget this. I'm at a drug house, and I am high as can be, you know. And I hear this guy say he was a cardiac surgeon. And I'm high, and I'm thinking, a cardiac surgeon? Are you kidding me? You're a cardiac surgeon? That's amazing. Can I see your hands? And so I thought, man, so you do like heart transplants and stuff. And he's like, yeah. And I'm so high, and I'm in a drug house with all these kids in various jobs, you know. And he's sitting next to a friend of mine who's a prostitute. I'm not saying you're a prostitute. I'm just saying. So I'm just saying. So he's sitting next to a friend of mine who is a prostitute, and I said, what are you doing here? And he says, what do you mean? What do you mean, what do I mean? What are you doing here? You're a cardiac surgeon? Does your wife know you're here? How much are you paying her? Because I'm thinking $20. I'm asking you, what are you doing here? He says, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to ask you one more time. What are you doing here? And I just grabbed him, grabbed him, and I just like, what are you doing here? And then finally, I said, do you make $20 when you walk into the hospital and take your first breath? Do you make more than $20? Because I'm just angry. I just want you to be normal. I just want you to be normal. I'm begging you, be normal. And so finally my friends are saying, Cheri, shut up. Leave him alone. And you guys probably are thinking that. But anyhow, so it's like, shut up and leave him alone. And I'm thinking, I'm not leaving him alone. I'm so angry. And somebody said, we're playing him, Cheri. I thought, we're playing him? Can I see your bank account? Because she doesn't have a bank account. Can I see your car? Because she doesn't have a car. Can I see your home? Because she lives here. You know what I mean? I think if anybody's playing anybody, he's playing us. And I just wanted to scream that at someone. Does anybody realize that's crazy? He gives a couple prescriptions. He writes a couple scripts, and he can have any kid in the room. And I'm like, I'm just losing it. I'm so crazy angry. And somebody's saying, do some drugs. Just shut up. And that's what I did, is I just got high again. And I did that for 10 years. I just would get high again. Probably the most intense thing is I got picked up by a group of bikers. And I remember, it's a long story of how it happened, but I remember getting picked up, getting some drugs. And I remember they said the premise of this whole biker thing, is there any bikers in the room? Because I love you. I just have to say that before I tell this story. But the whole premise of the thing was that they were going to go camping for the weekend, about 300 bikers. And I thought, camping? I have never, raise your hand if you've been camping. I've never been camping. My mom's boyfriend, I call him my stepdad, but my mom's boyfriend, he would smoke pot. You should go camping. It is so fun. And he would tell us all about camping. And he would be high as, but we never went camping. He would just smoke weed and tell us how wonderful it was. So when I was on the streets, somebody said something about camping. And I'm thinking, I'm beside myself. How fun is this? I didn't realize it was going to be initiation for new members. They took 3 kids from the streets, and they were just going to turn them out. I didn't even know what that meant. I got to the campground. There was a number of bikers. Everything was already happening. I got off the bike, and I started to walk towards where this party was, and I started to walk over there. And the guy that I was on his bike, said, "Excuse me, but did I tell you that you could walk away from me?" And I said to him, "Did I ask you? You know, I'm not even sure what you're talking about." And he hit me in the face as hard as he could. I fell down and hit a tree, and I was so angry. It was one of those times in my life, I remember a few times in my life where I was just enraged, but I was enraged, like, "I don't even know you, how dare you hit me, na, 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 na," and I got up and hit him. He hit me, I hit him. He's 38 years old, he was sergeant of arms, he was buffed, and I was about 14, tiny thing, you know. And pretty soon, the last time he hit me, everybody was laughing because I keep hitting the same tree, which was ridiculous. But people were laughing, and I got up to hit him, and then he hit me again. And so everybody's laughing. I realized the last time he hit me that I think my cheekbone is busted, my nose, and I lost a couple teeth. And so I was really messed up. And I just kind of, with my tongue, tried to feel how damaged am I. And I was literally, you know, how many teeth are gone, how damaged am I? And as I was doing that, blood everywhere, because I don't know if you've ever got your nose broke or whatever, but there's blood everywhere. And he walks up to me and he says, "Man, you are really gutsy. I like that. I'd like you to be my old lady." And I thought, is he asking me out? Because I don't think so. And I remember it was the first time that I realized that some groups, if you could take a punch and you come up swinging, they like you, you know. And so I'm in a world that I don't even know. But I ended up being with them for not too long. It took me a couple weeks to find a way out, but for a couple weeks. But in my life on the street, it was that kind of weird stuff. It was trying to find a place to go. I would go from place to place. And I just learned to survive the streets. When I was 23 years old, I was done. I mean, I was so done. I went to a drug house. I lived in a drug house, and I was dealing drugs at the time. And we were doing this drug deal in San Francisco. And people were buying 7 pounds of cocaine. And I know that a lot of people have done more than that as far as dealing, but that was what I was doing. So I was selling 7 pounds of cocaine to a group out of San Francisco. I was living in L.A. We flew in. Could you imagine nowadays flying in with drugs and money and stuff? But we flew in, had the drugs. You have chemicals, you have scales, you have all that kind of stuff. And then we got there. The guy owned a restaurant. And I remember thinking, you own a restaurant? And you're buying coke? We're drug dealers. And he's like, "Would you like to eat something?" "No, we're drug dealers." And I want somebody to be normal. I want someone to say, he owned a restaurant. This restaurant was on the ocean. On the ocean. And we're walking in selling drugs to him. I don't know about you, but that just bugged me. It bugged me. And so I'm like, not in a good place. Anyway, I'm done with all of this. I've been on the streets for a long time. I've been freebasing coke for a week. That probably didn't help. I've been up for a week, and you know, we sold the drugs to him. We had $67,000 cash in one deal. We had $11,000 in a separate deal. We had some drugs left, and now we're going back to the airport. And do you know it's illegal to fly with large sums of money if you don't have a job? That's almost as, I didn't realize, but that's almost as bad as having drugs, is having large sums of money and no job. And so anyhow, my job during this whole time is people would say, "Cheri, I'm going to go park the car. Can you check in the luggage?" So my job was I always kind of moved the drugs or checked in the luggage. I didn't realize I was used until I was in therapy. And like I was doing therapy one time, and years into my recovery, and I thought, you know what? I think I was used. I just want to say that out loud to someone. And I don't know why it took me so long, but it just took me a long time to realize that. But anyhow, so we are flying back home. We got the stewardess high, I've got to say that. That bugged me. The stewardess knew the guy I was with, and he had, you know those little bottles of, you can put Coke in, and they have a little spoon? I love when I see all the heads in the room nod. I'm thinking... But anyhow, so we got the stewardess high, and I remember wanting to tell the stewardess, "Go get your seatbelt on," you know, because I couldn't believe, is anybody normal? Is anybody not do drugs? Raise your hand if you've never seen a porn image, you know. Oh, so a couple of people, you know. Henry's wife. But anyway, hi, you guys. But anyhow, so it's like, I just wanted somebody to be normal. So we get the stewardess high. I get home. I am so burned out. I've been up for a week. I'm burned out. I'm angry at everybody and everything. And I give the money back to this guy. The money belongs to an attorney that's never done a drug in his life. He makes his money off of moving drugs, but he's not a druggie. So the money goes back to him, and I crash, right? And we do transactions at the house for people that want little bits of things. So we do some transactions. I go in the room and crash, and I go in the room and crash, and when you've been up high for a week, when you crash, it's not like you fall asleep. It's like a death. I mean, you really go in and crash. And I went in and crashed. And a couple hours later, I get woke up and to somebody that slammed a gun in my face. I'm going to blow your head off and nobody steals from me, and na, 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 and he's screaming and yelling and cussing. It took me a while just to even wake up. Like, who is this guy? I don't even know what you're saying. And then I realized that he's going to blow my head off. And I just wanted to say thank you so much, because I'm tired. I'm really tired. And I never felt so much peace. I thought, I've not been able to do this my whole life. I put mattresses down. I'm not good at killing myself. And so just go ahead. And when I relaxed, he says, are you crazy? I'm going to blow your head off. I said, are you my psychiatrist? Pull the trigger. Are you a little girl? Do you want me to get you some help? And how do you get someone to pull a trigger? Because he was not. He kept screaming. He kept yelling. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? You keep yelling? And then I realized that he's just trying to scare me. And I thought, my next breath scares me. I don't want to be here. Just pull the trigger. And he's just still yelling. And I'm thinking, just pull the trigger. Please just pull the trigger. And he starts to walk out, and he's like saying, I'm gonna give you a week, and if you don't have my money, and $11,000 that I had last was missing, and he thought I stole it. So if you don't have my money at the end of the week, I'm gonna come back and blow your head off. And I'm thinking, you're not gonna blow anybody's head off. How can I believe you? Just pull the trigger, and I'll believe you. But he walked out, and I had to breathe, and I had to take my next breath, and I did not want to. It's like I did not want to breathe. I didn't want to do this. I don't want to be here. Man, if this is the best that the world has, I'm done. I'm done. If nobody's normal, if love isn't real, I'm just done. And I remember just being so done. And I tried to get through the next couple days. It was really tough. And then I realized that I'm not going to make it. I need some help. And I thought, I better go get some help. And where do you think I went to get help? Anybody, where would you go? Don't make me come down there. No, I'm kidding. Somebody said like church or rehab or whatever, and I went to my mom's house, and I'm not even sure why I went to my mom's house, but by the way, I love to do week of prayer at your school. I'm just saying. So anyway, so I went down, I went to my mom's house, and I thought, and this is what I honestly thought. I'm going to go to my mom's house. I'm going to walk in, and she's going to say, what was I thinking? I love you. Come sit down. And my whole life, I've been waiting for someone to say, you can sit here. Do you know what I mean? And so I walked in. It was dark. Our house is always dark. We lived in the house where your kids were not even allowed to play with us because we were the druggies' kids. I mean, our house was a mess, nothing taken care of. And when I walked in, it was still the same. It was dark. It was dirty. My dad is smoking weed, or my mom's boyfriend is smoking weed, watching a football game, and my mom is kind of laying on the couch reading a book, and it's kind of nothing has changed. But when I walk in, I have teeth missing, I'm strung out on heroin, I weighed 100 pounds or less, and the first thing they said is, hey, nice to see you, how have you been? Anybody want to guess what I said? Fine, good. Just got back from vacation in San Francisco. And it's so crazy because addicts will say that and they look horrible. But I looked horrible and I said that. And my mom's boyfriend, and I love him. I love him. But he was smoking some weed, and he's like, you know what? Can you keep it down until after the game? And I remember that really got to me. Like, I just need to go. This was a stupid place to come to, and nothing has changed. And my mom talked a little bit, and then pretty soon I was like, I got to go. And I started to walk out, and my mom said, wait, I have something for you. And I thought, what does she have? And she went in the room, and she came back with a manila envelope, and she hands it to me. And she said, I went back to school since the last time I saw you. And I thought, no way. You went back to school? My mom is married to this guy, a perpetrator, who sexually molested all of us. We were all on the streets by this time. Everybody is strung out on different things. I had an uncle that literally was so yellow that I asked him one time, Graham, why are you so yellow? And he said that his mama was a duck. I mean, so instead of even saying my liver is shut down and it's not functioning, our family was just a mess like that. So I'm thinking, you went back to school. That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. And I was really proud of her. And so I was like, what are you taking in school? And she looked at me serious, and she said, I'm going to be a social worker. And you know those crimes where somebody's like stabbed like 300 times? I just could, if I had a knife, I think I would have just realized that crime. It's like, because to me, I thought, you're going to be a social worker. My sister's in the garage making meth. She can't even keep her body still because she's so damaged. Her teeth are rotted out. I'm on the streets just trying to figure out a way not to kill myself. My other sister's a porn star and is doing coke. And, you're not social work material. I just want to say, And in my day and age, you never talk back to your parents. Anybody know I'm telling the truth? I don't care who they are, you just didn't talk back to your parents. So I stood there very nice, and I said, you'll probably be a really good social worker. I need to go. And I went home, and I'm just thinking of a way to kill myself. And I walked in the drug house that I live in. There was a guy naked in the living room playing air guitar, high on some kind of hallucinogenic. And I just remember wanting to scream, I don't want you here. I don't want anyone here. I don't want to be here myself. And I just wanted to scream and trying to figure out how I'm going to take myself out. And I walked into my room, and I found some syringes, and I thought, I'm just going to pump air into my veins until my heart explodes, And I don't know if that would even work, but that was my plan. And I noticed that when I walked in the room, I threw that manila envelope on the bed. And I looked at the envelope, and I thought, what is she going to tell me, that she doesn't love me? She's told me that my whole life. What is she going to tell me, that this is all my fault? She's told me that my whole life. And I went over to the envelope to rip it up, and I remember wanting to rip it up until my hands bled. I wanted to rip it up into a billion pieces. I don't care anymore if you don't love me. I don't care anymore about anything because I'm not going to live past this day. And I went over to rip it up. Has anyone felt the presence of God in their life? It was the first time that I felt the presence of God. I turned around to go tear that envelope up, and I feel like God's in the room. The room didn't change. It didn't light up. There was no bizarre thing happen. But I felt for the first time in my life loved and at peace. And I remember thinking, I have no idea what just happened. No idea, other than I felt loved. And I just feel like what the Holy Spirit said to me is open up the envelope. I went over to the envelope, got the envelope, and my mom had written her autobiography in her social work program, so her life story. I could read second or third grade level, so at that point I was fairly illiterate, and I pulled the papers out of the envelope. My mom had gotten an A on this paper, and on the bottom of the A, it was in red. It said, please give this to Cheri, and it was signed by her doctor. Her teacher is a Dr. Kabine. And I went through this the best I could. I think God was with me going through my mom's life story. My mom was abused when she was a little girl. She was given out by her alcoholic mom when she was 5 and moved around, went over and stayed with this aunt that my mom sent me to. She stayed there most of her life. Then came to California, 9th grade. She was 12 years old, got pregnant with my dad, went through the whole thing with my stepdad. And I remember going through this autobiography thinking, I wish she would have told me this because I love my mom. I would have told her at any point, I'm so sorry that you went through that because I love you. And as I'm going through this, I turned the second page to the third page, and on the top of that page, it said the only reason I survived any of this is I took my anger and hatred out on my second child, and I ruined her life. And I couldn't even breathe. For the first time, I've been screaming my whole life, what is wrong with me? And all of a sudden, I feel like God himself said, it wasn't you at all. and if you want, I can help you. And I don't even know if you could imagine that. God himself, I felt, was saying, you can walk away from all of this right now. And I've got 40-something warrants for my arrest at that time. I'm strung out on heroin. I live in a drug house, and I'm fairly illiterate. And I'm thinking, not even God could help me. I just felt like I have nothing to give anyone. I have no value to anyone. And if people are religious at all, I just got to tell you the sense that I feel like what God did next is I feel like what God did next was, can I show you who I see when I look at you? What if he said that? Can I show you who I see when I look at you? My fear was he sees even more than what I've done. He knows exactly what I have done and what my motives were and all that kind of stuff. So it's really crazy to feel like, what if God unveiled kind of who you are? And I was a little scary to me, but what he said is, can I show you who I see when I look at you, is he showed me who I am the day after resurrection. Does anybody hear what I'm saying? The day after. Do you think I'm an unwanted kid? Do you think I'm a druggie? Do you think I'm a molested kid? The day after, and I don't even think I could see the full extent of that without it killing me. But what I saw was something worth standing up for. If that's what you're going to get me to, you're not going to get me just clean, because that's not his goal. It may be our goal, it may be our family's goal, it may be even our spouse's goal is that we stop using. But God said, I'm going to get you to the day after resurrection, and if you stand up, I will help you. When God said that to me, and I would just go another 15 minutes, but when God said that to me, what was really interesting to me is it was the first time I believed anybody, is I believed that God saw me in a different way. I believed that he wanted to show me that, and I believed he wanted for me to see myself in a different way. I'm an incredible child of God, loved. Thank you, but it's really crazy to know that, to just say, if that's true, what do I do next? Right? What do I do next? I'm living in a drug house. There's a naked guy in the living room. I wanted to tell God, let's sneak out the window, because this guy has no clothes on. He's crazy. And, and then even being able to say, I have warrants for my arrest. So I'm thinking, I don't know anyone to call. If I wanted to do recovery, do I call my addict friends? I know dancers, prostitutes, drug dealers. I don't know anybody that's normal. Even in my family, I don't know anybody that's normal. My dad finally did die, my real dad, in a crack house molesting kids. I don't have people that I can just call. And so I called the cleanest person I know, and he called his sister. And I got to tell you, this was the funniest thing to me. Let me see if I can give you an idea of what this was like. Can you come up for a minute? So I call this guy, and I say, I need a place to clean up. And he calls his sister, and his sister says I can go over to her house, and I could clean up. So I had to drive from California, Southern California, to Northern California, right? And I get there, and she answers the door, and she just looks so normal. And by this time, I've been driving like 8.5 hours. I'm not in the best place, because I can't even look at your normal self. You know what I mean? And she says, I love you. And I'm thinking, what, are you going to hand me a Christian track or something? Because I'm not in the mood. I just don't even know if this was stupid for me to do. I didn't even bring a drug with me. Are you kidding me? Don't smile like that. I just remember just thinking that. So she invites me in the house, and she puts some Christian music on. And it's 2 girls singing hymns. And I'm thinking, can someone shut that off? Because it's irritating. I'm irritated anyway, but this is really bad. And she said, you'll get used to it. And I remember thinking, I hope not, because that's really bad. I remember just asking her, finally, I'm in the living room. I'm trying to just get myself together, and I'm having a hard time. And so I go in the kitchen, and I said, excuse me, but do you have any coffee? She said, no. Dr. Pepper? Pepsi? Chocolate? Any kind of caffeine? Sugar? And she said no to all of that. And then she says to me, I'm a vegan vegetarian. I said, what does that mean exactly? And she said, I don't eat anything that has a mother. I said, I don't want to eat your mother. I just want some coffee, thank you. And I just remember, I just want some coffee. And so I said to her, do you have a stash anywhere? Everybody has a stash. And, even with druggies, we're alcoholics too, so we drink lots of sugar. I just want some sugar. Just give me anything, because I'm just dying here. And she looks on the stove, and she says, I have some lentils. And I'm thinking, who would eat that? Who would eat that? That looks nasty. And I'm thinking, is hell, when you finally get sent to hell for an addict, is it that you have to live with a vegan vegetarian for the rest of your life? I was just like, that's terrible. And now I am one, so don't. But anyway, so I am like, I'm just thinking I'm not going to survive this. And she said, are you thirsty? And I said, yes, I want some coffee. And she said, how about some water? Has anybody, please raise your hand if you've said this. Has anybody out there said, I can't stomach that? Because addicts will say that. Alcoholics, somebody will say, you want some water? And like, oh, that's nasty. No, chlorine, it just tastes like chlorine. But we could drink tequila by the bottle, straight, And so she said to me, she said, how long did it take you to get used to alcohol? And I said, probably a while. And she said, water's like that. And so she gave me water, she gave me fruit, she let me tell these horrendous stories. When I was taken by that motorcycle gang, I watched 300 bikers rape and kill a 13-year-old. And I told her every part of this, every detail, what happened. And she let me talk, and she would go in and go to the bathroom and come back out and let me talk again. I would go smoke, and she would ask me what happened next. And for about a week, she would do all these things. And I remember thinking that I would just tell her the worst stories. And I think I was just telling her the worst stories for her to judge me just one time. Just judge me one time. And I would say to her, don't tell people you love them when you don't know them. And so after a week or so, she said, what's the worst thing that you ever did? And I thought about a molest that happened when I was a kid. I was molested by an uncle that came into the room with my cousins and I, and they thought we were all asleep, and he molested me and walked out. Nobody was asleep. We were all pretending we were asleep. And I knew that they were awake, and I knew that they now knew that I was that kid, and I was just this trampy kid. And I said that was probably my most shameful thing, because I just think about that, and it just, that's probably the thing that causes me the most shame. And she started crying. And I thought, did I miss something? What are you crying for? And she just simply said, that wasn't your fault. And I just burst out crying, If anybody would have said, here's a normal home where everybody loves everybody, and here's the home you grew up in, you pick. I wanted to be loved my whole life. My whole life. And I love my family, so I'm not saying I wouldn't want to pick them, but I would want to be loved, and I'd want piano lessons and all that kind of stuff that kind of normal kids get. I didn't get that kind of stuff. And so I cried, and she cried, and we held each other. And at that moment, it was the first time I felt safe with someone. It was just that first moment. And what she did next, I think, was the funniest thing, is she went like this, and a Bible slipped out from her sleeve. And now we're doing Bible study. And I'm thinking, how do you guys do that? I mean, it's like I didn't even see it coming. It was just totally blindsided me. So she did this. She started Bible study, and it was so slick. But she did, who is God and Jesus and all that kind of stuff. And I never told her that I think I met God at the drug house. That started this whole thing, because I didn't want someone to tell me that was probably just an acid flashback, and you were probably, I just didn't want someone to take it away from me. But she told me about Jesus and Jesus being the Son of God and that kind of stuff, and that told me about David killing somebody and sleeping with this girl and getting her pregnant, and that he went into this depression, but he was forgiven and loved. And I remember thinking that was incredible, because I don't know if I could have forgiven him, but that there was a God that actually forgave him. Told me about this woman that was drugged to Jesus' feet, and Jesus is God, and that there was a number of guys around her that were waiting to stone her, and literally taking big boulders and were going to bash her skull in, because she slept with someone. Raise your hand if you would have been in trouble in that day and age. I'm sorry. And you guys don't have to raise your hand for anything, right? I'm just saying. So anyhow, so even with that is that they were going to stone her. And that didn't get to me during that whole story. The fact that they were going to stone her wasn't the issue. The fact that that was the penalty for sleeping around was not the issue for me. But what happened next was it really got to me. She was telling me that the guys that were in the circle that were having the stones, that Jesus could tell each one of them every single thing that they've ever done wrong. And he was literally writing that in the sand. Nobody could see it but that guy and him. And all the way around the circle, that was true. Only you and God saw what he wrote down. And he said, if you have nothing, go ahead and throw the stone at her. And I was just like, so this is God, and he knows everything that you've ever done. And he said, if you have nothing, you have the right. But if you have anything, and he's writing the things that you've not shared with anybody. And he says, but if you have something, walk away. And people threw the stones down and walked away. And I thought, if we have a God that not only can forgive us, but will not call us out, is not trying to shame us, is not trying to say, as soon as you come forward, I'm going to tell everybody all this stuff, or I'm going to shame you, is that we've got a God that says, I'm not going to shame you. It's not who I am. But man, don't hurt yourself. Go and don't sin. And I thought that was amazing. And I'm thinking, I could really trust a God like that. I have a lot of things that have happened to me, but I also have a lot of things that I've done. So, that really got to me. And the next thing was the guy that the pastor was trying to talk about when we first started, is that she tells me, I want to tell you about this guy. And she says, this guy was ugly and crazy. He's so crazy, they kicked him out of town, chained him up. He broke the chains. He was the kind of guy that would rape somebody or beat them up or whatever. And I thought, well, tell me about that guy, because what happened to that guy? Because you know what I want to have happen to that guy? I want him skinned alive. I want body parts removed. I mean, I was just like, I want to hear the rest of that story. And she says, did I tell you he was ugly? Yeah. What happened to that guy? Did I tell you he was crazy, cutting on himself, filled with 1,000 demons? And she said, I said, well, what happened to that guy? And she said, did I tell you he was ugly? You did. I think I dated that guy. And so when I say, I think I dated that guy, I really think I dated that guy. I watched 300 bikers kill a 13-year-old girl. Do you think that guy's not out there? I've been in a car 2:30 in the morning. I don't know why drug addicts make deals this late, because we look crazy. We're driving down the street, our eyes are this big, and we're cars packed with drugs, all that stuff. But anyhow, you get pulled over by the police, and the driver says, what'd you pull me over for? And I'm thinking, can you just shut up right now? For the first time in your life, don't say another word, because we're going to jail. And I'm thinking, I know that guy. They said Jesus gets out of the boat and starts walking after that guy. And I'm thinking, oh, man. He gets up to him, and the guy cusses him out. And I think, I know I dated that guy. You don't even know. This is God. Are you kidding me? Just be quiet right now. Just for the first time, just don't say another word. And he cusses him out. And I'm listening to this story and say, something's got to happen. He's got to be like 15, 20 bolts of lightning coming down from heaven. This guy's got to be skinned alive. This guy's got to be killed in some way, painful way, slow, painful way. And I'm waiting for the next thing. And she says that what happens next is Jesus pulls all the demons out of him, walks him to the water, because I believe this guy couldn't walk at that point. I believe that was a huge transformation. Walks him to the water, cleans him up, and he's in his right mind for the first time ever, sitting next to Christ. And I'm thinking, hold up. That is not what I wanted to happen. What happened? What do you mean? And 1 minute he's cussing him out. 1 minute he's crazy and all these demons are screaming. And the next minute he's cleaned and in his right mind at the water. Wait a minute, because did I miss something? And she said what a lot of people don't get in that story is this guy was so filled with addiction, so filled with junk, that he couldn't even ask for help. With God himself in front of him, he couldn't even say, please help me. But there was a cry in his heart that said, please do not leave me like this. And Jesus heard that cry and cleaned him up. And so to me, I thought, there's a God that won't shame me. There's a God that's not even waiting for me to say the right words, because I may not say the right words. I don't know the right words to say. I am so full of junk and addictions and craziness that I may say all kinds of stuff before it's right, and yet I have a God that says, don't worry about that, because I'm right here, and I won't leave you. And so to me, everything changed for me at that point. Believing her was the first time I met somebody. She was not perfect at all. In fact, every 20 minutes or so during the whole time I was at her house, she would go to the bathroom. I thought she had kidney infections. I said, I know you're vegan, but I think your kidneys are shutting down, because nobody goes pee that much, you know. And she said that every time she felt like judging me, she would go to the bathroom and just get on her hands and knees and pray. And she said she's from a very judgmental family. And she said, I don't even know how you are right here. And so she would pray, please don't let me hurt her, because she said I would hurt you with some of the stuff that I would want to say. So she would be praying. And I watched God heal her at the same time he was healing me, and I think both of them were very significant healings. And so to me, that was a life-changing thing for me. And to walk into recovery and find out, now what do I do? What's the next step? How do I get my sanity back? Is God actually God? And is the gospel life-changing? And can we hold on to a power greater than ourselves for recovery? And what I learned was yes, yes, and yes. And so I'm going to ask if there's anybody that has any questions for tonight. But tonight I just wanted to give you a sense of who I am, why have I done this. I literally went back to school for addictions and recovery work, and now do my own nonprofit for working with people in recovery. Just because I think, for one, most of us have something that we are having to deal with, molest or addictions or craziness or whatever. But I think a lot of us, most of us have that basic stuff, but a lot of us are just disconnected, and we just want a place to sit next to someone and to heal. So I just wanted you to know that's kind of where I'm coming from and why I do what I do, and why I would do that probably until my last breath. Any questions, any comments? Yeah, amen. What's really interesting to me, hallelujah was all she said. But what was really interesting to me with coming out of that is the first time I leave Donna's house. Her name is Donna. I leave her house, and she, of course, tells me I need to learn to read and go back to school and find a church. And I ran into a church crazy as could be. Woohoo! I think I had a dress that was this big. Somebody said something that you guys like to eat after church, so I brought a pork roast. But I mean, it was just ridiculous. But I think that I came in, and what I saw was there was a lot of issues, and I saw a lot of people not dealing with their issues. And I remember even wanting to say to God, that's not fair. You're asking me to heal here. I don't even know if they like each other. Do you know what I mean? And so what do you mean? And I think that we'll talk about this week. What I mean is that this is my Father's house, and he wants us to heal. Really wants us to heal. Yes, sir.
Why do you think God waited till you were 23 or 25 before you started recovery when you were looking for recovery long ago?
Why do I think God waited till I was 23? I'll just tell, I went to God one time, and I was really angry at him. I was in recovery, and I was dealing with my father who molested me since I was 3 months old, and I said to God, why didn't you stop that? You know, how could you let that happen? And I felt like what the Holy Spirit said is, I tried to stop your dad every day. Every day. I tried to get in front of him, tried to get him to look at his addictions in a different way. And if you have sexual addictions here, if you're molesting kids or any of that stuff, know that God says, I can help you. I can change you. But I think that God waits until we actually are ready. I don't think he waits any longer than that what we would respond to. But when my dad died in his addictions, doing crack and in his addictions, I believe God even told me on that day is his sadness of the loss of my dad, because he said, I tried to change him throughout his whole life. I think that God would have healed me sooner had I been able to hear him. So does that make sense? Are you done? Because I think that that's a question for some people, because some people will say, God probably allowed you to be molested so that you could do this, and I don't believe that. I don't believe that God allows those kind of things into our life. We hurt each other, especially when we're injured. We tend to hurt each other in our addictions, whatever they may be, and I think that God would love us to get into recovery as soon as we can. Yes? Yeah. How has my husband dealt with this? He wasn't a Christian for the first 15, 17 years of our marriage, and I went into evangelism. Poor thing. So one time I was working with kids in the sex trade industry in Bangkok, Thailand, and the Thai mafia was threatening to gut us and hang our intestines in the back of the club, and my husband's going, can you change your line of work, But I think that he slowly started looking at God himself, and then now he works alongside of me in ministry. But it was years before that happened. He would love me to have been just normal. I don't even know what that means. But, what was really interesting, I love the question, because my husband never, he looked at me a lot like, you have all the problems and I'm good. But he was really arrogant. His family were the music teachers and the ambassador, and they weren't allowed to play with other kids, and because they would marry one of them maybe, and then he brings this druggie home. So I think that when he started to deal with his own issues, he had anger, arrogance, and some other kinds of things that he dealt with that were just as difficult to deal with as my drug addiction. And if you asked him, he really has done some really incredible recovery work. He had some sexual addictions he had to look at and those kind of things. Because a lot of people we didn't tell him anything for the first 8 years. How's his family accepted me? Yeah. So they wondered why my parents were not at the wedding. So so we didn't tell him anything. After 8 years or so. After 8 years or so, I was doing a thing at an academy, a week of prayer at an academy in Wisconsin, and I was going to speak at the church, and his parents, would you please come and just, you've got to hear my background, you've got to hear where I've come from. I was on Sally Jesse Raphael's show, that's an older talk show, and I was on that show, and I was afraid she was going to hear from maybe her friends. And so I said, you've got to just come. And so when I spoke at the church, they came and sat in the front. At the end, they just said, I love you so much. I'm so sorry. It was really tough because his mom especially felt like if I know your background, I'm afraid to you. And you're a good wife to my husband. You're a good wife to my son, and you're a great mother to my granddaughter, and I don't want to hear anything. So she didn't want to hear for a long time. But we found out that, everybody has stuff. Brad's father had a sexual addiction. They deal with arrogance and some stuff in their family. So I think everybody has things that they deal with. And I thought mine was the worst. Then I met you guys. So what I feel like, what's incredible for any of us is our ability to heal. It's just incredible that somebody says, like even this group, you guys went through this group. So I've had people say, I'll go through it, but I don't have anything. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking, how cute is that? The woman that I work with said to me one time, she said, and I love her, but she said, you know what, Cheri? I envy you sometimes because I don't get, I've been a Christian my whole life. I've been in the church my whole life. But I think the blood of Christ is a little bit overkill on my behalf. And I thought, what do you mean by that? You know, and so she said, I get angry maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Did Jesus have to die for that? And I said, this is going to be one of your most painful years if you do this with me. But can we just pray every day that God shows you why he had to die for you? And she says, yeah, whatever. And it was the most painful year she's had. But she started to see herself in a real way, started dealing with her kids in that issue in a real way. Some things came out that were pretty intense. But it's like she finally realized what the cross is about and what Christ is about and what healing is about. So I think for a lot of us, most of us have something, because we live in this world. I mean, we have something that we know. Yes, sir.
How many years have you been dry?
79. Since 1979. All right. I think, wow. But in the fact that I didn't think I would get a week or a month or a year, and now, what is that, 36 years or so? So I've been clean a long time. The other day, man, how can I say this? I hope you get this. I've never fit anywhere, because now I don't fit with my druggy friends. I definitely don't fit a lot with people born and raised in the church. So it's weird to kind of be in a place where you really don't fit in a lot of different places. I don't fit with my daughter, who was born normal. I don't even know how to raise a normal kid. Straight A student, in schools, on the debate team, she's just an incredible kid, but I don't, so it's weird to be in that place. But the other day, I was standing in a hospital room holding my daughter's baby, or my grandbaby. And for the first time in my life, I fit somewhere. I know exactly why I'm here, and I know why recovery was so important to fight for. And I know the reason that whole generational thing in my family is starting to disappear. My daughter's never done a drug. Her child was born incredibly healthy and is beautiful. And so there's really a reason to fight. And it may not be that you fight and you fit in, because sometimes we want to fit in right away, and that may not happen. But I fight in that whole kind of generational thing just starts to change. And it so is worth it. When I'm finding out right now, it is, I am so glad I never gave up. I'm so glad that I didn't kill myself or start using again, or, all of those kind of things, because holding this kid was a really big deal for me. Big deal. And thank you. Thank you. Yeah, because the next addict needs somebody to say, you know what, it's possible. It's possible. Any other questions? Yes. Well, I love that. And even when she says that for the last 10 years, and I didn't know that, and the fact that we see each other, it's a big deal. And I think that what happens is that sometimes we stand up, we get recovery, and we are silent about it. And I'm thinking, don't be silent. Somebody needs to know. When the demoniac was changed and cleaned up in his right mind, imagine if that guy, crazy, filled with 1,000 demons, went back to his hometown and said, you know what? I had a little problem with anger, but I'm good. Do you know what I mean? That somebody says, why do you tell so much? Because we're supposed to. I'm not bragging about anything. I'm just saying there is a God that knew everything about me and still showed me who I am the day after resurrection. Still said, I'm going to get you home. And that's an amazing thing. And for us addicts that may not get a normal life anytime soon, we get to do recovery, and we get to know that there's a God that knows our name. It's huge. Yes.
Cheri, how did you hear God speaking to you?
How did I hear God speaking to me? To me, I don't know what it feels like not to hear God speak to you. So I don't hear a voice. It's not an audible thing, but it's definitely, I know it's Him. For one, I'm not that bright. But and so I think that sometimes when people say, I don't hear God speaking or I don't know what that's like, even tonight, if you're coming back tomorrow, ask God to tell you a joke tonight. Ask him to show you something. Because you'll start to realize that God will speak through friends. He'll speak through the Bible. He'll speak through a song. He'll speak through something that's happening around you. It's like he starts to make himself really well known to you, and you start to realize that's God. I have never heard just a booming voice, or handwriting on the wall, like that kind of thing. But I've heard God speak to me over and over and over. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Yes, sir. How many hardships? You mean relapses or? Man, tons. I would say I couldn't count them, but finding a job, learning to read, getting a place, realizing that I'm still not normal after 10 years and having to work on trust issues and all that kind of stuff. So I would say that it's not been easy, but on my cell phone, if anybody wants to see it, I'll bring it tomorrow. There's a woman in battle armor, and she's got blood on her. And all it says is the battle is real. So I don't fool myself. This is not going to be easy. I remember one time, and this may help, is one time I went to a psychiatrist. Well, I'm more than once, but this one particular time. I went to a doctor, and I was feeling really crazy, and I remember saying to him, I feel crazy right now. I'm not going to make it. This is crazy. What was I thinking? Maybe I'm schizophrenic. Maybe I'm bipolar. And I just was screaming and crying and ranting and raving. And I finally got exhausted. I don't even know how long I yelled. But I finally sat down, and he looked at me. He's a really nice older guy. And he looked at me, and he said, man, looks like you're really having a bad day. And I wanted to grab him by the throat. This is my life. This is not a bad day. And I just wanted to go off on him again. He said, hold up. If you don't expect days like this, sometimes weeks like this, sometimes months like this, you're going to trip yourself up. You're going to make it, but it's not going to be easy. And for people in recovery, don't let anyone lie to you and say that if you just stop doing this, you're going to make it, and it's that easy. It's not that easy. I've got to learn how to think differently. I've got to learn how everything is going to be new. I got to learn to love. I've never allowed myself to love. I've got to learn how to trust and let people in my life. I've got to learn to not manipulate and lie. Get out. It's easy to manipulate, and I'm good at it. So it's like I've got to learn all of those things, and all of those things take a long time. But one day, it's really weird when I was standing there holding that baby, realizing that, you know what? In a sense, I have made it. And not that there's no more work to do, because there is, but it's a weird thing to get to those days where, you know what, today I actually see myself differently. I don't see myself as an addict. I can go into your bathroom at your house and I'm not thinking about ripping you off. I'm not going through your medicine cabinet. I mean, all of those kind of things. And so it just happens, but it's not easy at all. But man, it is so worth it. To be in your own skin, to laugh out loud, to finally be good, feeling good about who you are without any reason, just because you're you. I mean, that's incredible stuff. So it is so worth it. For people that are still using, think of that as a lover who lies to you. She's lying to you. The drugs and alcohol, the sexual stuff, whatever our addiction is, it never gets better, it never gets easier, and never lets us alone. And so just it's a lover that is just a liar, that you actually are worth recovery. I'm going to close. If anybody has anything to say. Do I still have the gown? No. I wish it would still fit me. But no. If you ask Brad, what did it look like, he remembers. It's just fun. Any questions from you guys? I don't want to put you on the spot. But you know what? I just have to say, especially when I go around and talk and stuff, man, you need to get into ministry. I don't care what kind of ministry you choose, but I feel like, especially the church is dying, and it needs people to stand up and be real enough that people can come sit down. You guys are very relational, And that's got to be a part of your ministry. If you're going to do any recreational stuff, getting people outside is another part of ministry that's amazing. And so just know, Cheri said, you want to write it down? No. So we're going to go ahead and close. I like to close in prayer, if that's okay. If anybody wants to specifically just come up and pray, I'd like to put my hand on you and pray. If you don't want to, that's totally fine. I just am that kind of person that likes to, I just like to be around someone. Yeah, come on up. Come on up. And so anybody that's sitting down, if you're praying with us or for us, pray for us all. Dear Father, in Jesus' name, you see each of us, and you see us, the people that have stood up and the people that are still sitting, but they want to stand. I just pray that you put your hand on them, that you tell them a joke, that you let them know that you have never, ever been ashamed of them, that you know who they are the day after resurrection, and you'll get them there. I pray for courage, man, to stand against all this stuff. I pray for wisdom. I pray for just a glimpse of what it feels like to be clean. And not normal, because I haven't met anybody normal, but just clean, in our right mind, laughing out loud in our own skin. I just pray for all of that. And so I pray for you to fill us up with your Holy Spirit, to baptize us. If there's any demonic stuff or any strategy that the enemy has come against us, I just pray that whatever that strategy is, that you just break that off of us. Really break that off of us. Break any chains. And free us in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Okay, so we will be back tomorrow.
Wait till I tell people I got to squeeze your boob.
Amen, amen. What a powerful evening we've had. Tomorrow morning, we will continue with Cheri Peters right here in the same place, this very place, at 10:50. We'll begin our service in the morning. And then we'll have a luncheon that you're all invited to, so you can stay for a 2:30 session tomorrow afternoon. And so please know that you're welcome to come. As you leave here tonight, make sure you take our gift book so you can be blessed even more. So again, God bless you. Have a good night. And God willing, we'll see you tomorrow.